Great. Well, we're going to get going. Good evening, everybody, and happy Earth Week. And welcome to our Spring Earth Speaks presentation tonight. We're really glad you can join us. Before we get going, I'm going to turn it over for a land acknowledgement and then come back to introduce tonight's topic, speaker, and how we're going to roll. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Tonight, I'm pleased to share with you the land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that the land I live on is unceded, unsurrendered Anishinaabe First Nations territory. I have been a member of the Land Back movement for many years. The Land Back movement advocates for a transfer of decision-making power over land back to Indigenous communities. I am proud of the First U congregation that have voted to transfer land back to the Ontario Aboriginal Housing Service to build affordable housing.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. So I'm Mike Fletcher. I'm a congregant at First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa, and I chair the Environmental Action Group. It's my pleasure to introduce tonight's topic and speaker and to welcome you all. So tonight we'll hear about Ajaski and have a presentation from its leader, Coyote White Duck. First, I'll give a little bit of background about Ajaski and how we came to have this great program at our congregation and at our place of worship. The Environmental Action Group recommended 3.5 years ago to the congregation that the climate crisis be our congregational focus for the next 4 years. And as an action out of that, we started to look at having the church, having the congregation and the church grounds be recognized under the Unitarian Green Sanctuary Program. And we found this a challenging process in a few ways. There's a lot to think about. We had to learn and understand mitigation, meaning fighting the emissions that are destroying the planet. We had to learn about resilience and adaptation, meaning what we are facing, things like our ice storm from almost 2 weeks ago now, our derecho storm from last May, et cetera, and how we deal with that, how we support each other, and how we make ourselves more resilient. But lastly, and maybe most importantly, for tonight's discussion especially, we had to consider social justice angle. So we were challenged by the program to consider how we would work with a community in our midst that is perhaps socially challenged, not because of their own misgivings or misdeeds, just their situation, and being impacted by the climate crisis. And most critically, we were challenged to figure out how to work in partnership with them. So I think many people watching would be familiar with many charity models. So we can give money to a charity and then they can turn around and donate to an organization, people, groups, etc., that are in need. But that's not quite an equal partnership. So we had a lot of thinking to do about forming an equal partnership with a group that's being impacted by climate change and perhaps without the strongest social footing under them to deal with it. Partnership implies that each party has something to contribute. And we know that's the case. Like, I think all of us innately know that just because some people may be economically impacted more than others doesn't mean that they don't have knowledge and things to contribute. And they should be contributing, not just receiving charity. They want to. Everybody does. I think it's innate in our nature to want to contribute in these ways. So figuring out how to do this wasn't easy, but it was important. And the kind of the progenitor of this, I think, was action to have a sharing circle. A couple people on the call tonight, Sharon and Susan, were involved in an initial sharing circle that led to the idea getting caught on that we could form a partnership with Coyote and with Indigenous people in our community that needs support, but also want to partner with us to be able to teach us and to help us and teach us many things. And we could, I think many on the call tonight have examples of the partnership that's been going on as marvelous two-way relationship that is mutually supporting and something for both parties and for all of us. So that's what gave rise to all of this happening. I think it was great that we were challenged with something that was not simple, and we had to think our way through it and find something in the way of an endeavor, in a project to partner with another group in this way to develop something really great. So I'm talking about this really great thing. It's Ajaski. It's a partnership for urban agriculture that involves Indigenous youth in Ottawa using the area around the church and inside the church to grow food, teaching about both climate resiliency, reducing emissions, climate, we call them food warriors related to climate change. And so this is part of the educational aspect. They're learning. We're sharing food. We've worked with Parkdale Food Center. The program has worked with Parkdale Food Center and has worked with other programs and other groups in the community and with the congregants. I can speak personally of having Coyote come over to our place, put some wood for the gardens in his truck. He pointed to some plants we might have not thought they were what they actually weren't. He's acknowledging that right now. We were about ready to eat them, which wouldn't have been a good idea. It's just an example of part of this partnership. So just an introduction about our speaker tonight. Coyote comes from Kittigan-Zibi. He's been educated in herbal medicine, or I may have that wrong, herbalism, right? Excuse me. And among other things, and is a farmer. We were discussing Coyote getting some chickens for his farm at Kittigan-Zibi. And he's accommodated us tonight despite last week's storm and the internet being out. Understand, Coyote, you've gone over to your parents' place so you can join us tonight. Things we have to do to be resilient these days, this day and age. But it's great you're able to do so. And before I hand it over to you, just a little bit of housekeeping, unfortunately. So we're running this like a webinar. So what we'll do, Coyote, you'll speak. Please put questions into the chat. We'll moderate them. I'll try and group them. If there are a few questions along the same lines, I'll moderate that. And for about close to the top of the hour, getting close to 8 o'clock, depending on how many questions we have, I'll ask moderated questions. And then once that takes its course, we'll open things up and we can just have some chit chat until people are chit-chatted out, and call it an evening. So again, thanks for joining us. And Kayuki, with that, over to you. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for the introduction. Yeah, Quay, hello, everyone. And thank you for having me back here on Earth Speaks. Last time I was on Earth Speaks was about 2 years ago. I had just finished our first gardening season. And I had spoken a bit about what Ajashki had been doing in that gardening season and what our vision was for the future. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about 2 topics. First, I will give you another update about Ajashki Food Security and Climate Change Learning Center, and or as we like to say, we call our updates, what's growing on. And I'll also be speaking about the 7 dimensions of wellness. The 7 dimensions of wellness is something we've been focusing on in Ajashki with our participants that we refer to as future food warriors. But yeah, I'll get to a little bit more. The 7 dimensions are about youth empowerment, but I'll explain a lot more about that later on. First, I'm going to tell you about what's going on with Ajashki. So to give you an update about what we have been doing lately at Ajashki, I first would just like to kind of explain the difference between our summer program and our winter program. So the summer program focuses almost exclusively on gardening and food security. A day at Ajashki in the summer usually consists of a few hours of gardening outside or in the volunteer room when we have the grow towers. Yeah, this kind of includes grow tower maintenance, watering, weeding, planting, composting, harvesting, building gardens, and building critter protection, as well as just generally learning about plants and gardening. So we usually try to finish all these tasks before the midday heat sets in. So usually by lunch, we try to have most of our gardening stuff done, although it doesn't always happen that way. When we have lunch, we usually try to harvest some of our crops either from the grow towers or outside, and we make our lunch with that. And then after our lunch, we do different activities, and these activities kind of change depending on what the day from day to day. But they usually include stuff like preparing food donations to the Parkdale Food Center, going on plant identification walks, either through the back or through the meditation garden, making art for the garden, or watching videos about agriculture or indigenous cultures or any climate change or anything related to those topics. So sometimes in the summer, we like to go on field trips. We've taken a few so far. And as Mike had pointed out, I had recently moved to a farm. So one of the things we're hoping to do this year is to get all the future food warriors up to the farm to get them some real hands-on farm experience. That's good for every youth, in my opinion. So in the winter, our program looks a lot different than the summer. Other than the upkeep of the grow towers and starting our seedlings for the outside garden, there's not really too much we can do around food security and gardening. So we tend to focus on other topics a bit more in the winter, such as climate change, indigenous cultures, and art. So recently we received an art grant from Crime Prevention Ottawa called the Shine Grant, which focuses on social justice. This grant we got is for building art pieces with the overall goal to prevent crime. So within this goal, there are several themes laid out by Crime Prevention Ottawa. And these themes include homelessness, food insecurity, anti-hate, and systemic barriers. So each of the future food warriors, plus myself, we're each doing our own individual art piece for this grant. And we each chose a theme that was laid out by Crime Prevention Ottawa. And we also chose a form of art media to do our art piece with. And we each chose our own. I decided to do paint a painting because that's a skill that I'm not very good with, and so I just wanted to try it out. But with the final submission, what that's going to look like, because we have to submit something after all the art pieces are done to Crime Prevention Ottawa. We're going to do a video collage of all the art pieces. So we have a couple of 5 or 6 different art pieces. So the video collage is going to have all of our art pieces in it, and then each art piece is going to have spoken words over top of it. And these spoken words are going to describe how our art relates to the themes that were laid out by Crime Prevention Ottawa. So once this is complete and we've sent it into Crime Prevention Ottawa, we're actually hoping to showcase these art pieces to the members of First U in Ottawa at some point. We're still deciding on how exactly that will work and when it will be, but we're hoping to be able to showcase to everybody. And another really amazing part about this grant is it allowed us to carry out a series of art-related workshops to help guide all of us with making our own art pieces. So these workshops, which I absolutely enjoyed, I'll list them out for you. They are as follows. So the first one was making beaded earrings using the peyote stitch technique. This was taught by an Inuit artist named Stranger Alla, or just named Stranger, actually. Alla is how you say stranger in Nuktuk. The second one was making birch bark baskets, with Pinocchio Smith, who is a bush craftsman from my community. The third one was making paper collages with a lady named Christina from Gallery 101 in Ottawa. The fourth one was making plaster casts of our hands with somebody named Michelle from who owns a company called Space Effects. That was a real fun one. And the final workshop we did was making beaded feathers with a lady named Charlene Tolley from Raven's Nest in my community of Kitigan-Zibi. So needless to say, I learned a lot at each workshop and enjoyed each one a bunch. And I think all the future food warriors quite enjoyed them too. After each workshop, we got to take whatever piece of art we made home with us. So now we all have beaded feathers, earrings, a birch bark basket, collages, and yeah, that's it. So yeah, moving on. So some of our goals for the future food warriors, we have a few that we kind of have. One was showcasing them that is possible to make an income with the art, as we do have a few artists within our future food warrior group. And we did this via the workshops that we did. A lot of those people who did the workshops were artists who are out there making a living for themselves with their art. Another goal is getting them to be more food secure. Obviously, we're a food secure program, so we want everybody who is in the program to be food secure. But one of our primary goals for this project is for them to learn to work and better prepare them for any job that they might get after a Jashki. Of course, that Jashki is not going to be a career for any of them, but eventually they're going to move on to other jobs. So we like to try to prepare them for that. Also be saying that we also hoping to develop skills that may help them on later on in life, on and off the job. So those would be skills like gardening or cooking is obviously a big one. That's a big skill to have. So now I'm going to talk a bit about some of Jashki's accomplishments. So I'm going to be super happy reading what we have done and some things that we've been awarded. So something we are super proud of is our ability to work with other groups. We have a friendly agreements signed with Friends of the Meditation Garden, the RE program, the Environmental Action Group, the Justice Equity Action Group, and the ORH. And even as we speak now, more friendly agreements are in the works. So it has been said that the friendly agreements support the benefit of transforming the congregation from a charity model to a collaborative model. back in October of 2022, so last year, we had a reporter from the National Observer visit us on a Thursday. After that visit, he then wrote an article about Ajashki that was published, and it went Canada-wide. So that was some really great press for us that we were excited about. And then a few months ago, we received a green space certificate. I believe Mike touched on that a bit. And for the Ajashki Garden, recognizing our commitment to keep our space green and environmentally friendly. As well, another award received, and this one is hot off the press, is called, and when I say hot off the press, it's very recently received it. So recent that I actually got a phone call from Sharon Bowen today, just a few hours ago, telling me about this award. So I literally just heard about this a few hours ago. It came from Ecology Ottawa, and Ecology Ottawa will only be announcing it tomorrow. But the award is the Climate Champion Award. Why were we awarded this award? Because 3 reasons. The first reason is because Ajashki is a local climate advocate that inspires others to speak up and take action on climate change and the environment. Number 2 is that we're teaching greenhouse gas emission reductions. And 3 is that we help future food warriors to adapt to the changing climate in our city. So yeah, that's another word that we just got hot off the press that I was pretty excited to learn about today. Moving on. So in case anyone is curious on how Ajashki is able to afford to run our project and all the activities that we do, I thought I might share who and what our primary funders are. So they are Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, Ottawa Community Foundation, Nature Canada, who has a program called the Work to Grow program. And this is great for us because they're going to pay for half the wages of all of our future food warriors, all of our youth future food warriors, which is all of our future food warriors because they are all youth. Another one is Crime Prevention Ottawa. As I explained, we applied for a grant with the art grant for them, and they gave it to us, and allowed us to do those art projects plus all those workshops. The Social Justice Action Network at First U is also one of our funders, and of course, personal donations. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has either helped us with funding applications or has donated directly to Ajashki. We couldn't do it without you. So yeah, a kichi miigwech to all of you who have done that, which means a big thank you in Anishinaabe. So yeah, to wrap up this what's going on about Ajashki, I would quickly like to mention some of our upcoming activities. So the obvious one is that we are getting ready to plant our outside gardens. You know, the snow has melted, the weather is changing, and it's almost time for gardening season. So we have been planting some of our seedlings in the volunteer room to get ready to plant outside when the time comes. And we are also exploring the possibility of, or the idea of a growing wall. So a growing wall system. So this I don't know too much about it yet, but this would be kind of similar to our grow tower systems that we have in the volunteer room. Another exciting idea we are looking to do is an Indigenous mural. And this Indigenous mural would go on the wall by the Ajashki Garden in the back of the church. The mural would be designed by Indigenous artists and painted by the future food warriors. So we are still exploring ideas for the mural art, but the mural would be something that represents Ajashki, food security, and climate change, as well as possibly Indigenous cultures as well. The mural would be we're thinking about painting it on canvases, or I'm not sure the exact material, and then the canvases would go up on the wall, so we would be able to bring it inside in the wintertime and it wouldn't be permanently on the wall. So Ajashki is in partnership with the Justice Equity Action Group to create a food cupboard. This food cupboard would supply food to those in need in Ajashki, in First U congregation, and as well to the surrounding community. This would be done in 3 phases, but as of right now, we are still in the brainstorming part of this project, so I can't give you too much info on that. So yeah, now I'll be moving on to the 7 dimensions of wellness. Maury, if you please. Perfect. So yeah, the 7 dimensions of wellness are the 7 dimensions of oneself that make someone well, happy, and healthy. They are as follows: physical wellness, emotional wellness, intellectual wellness, financial wellness, social wellness, spiritual wellness, and environmental wellness. So these 7 dimensions can be further divided into points or issues, if you will. Some of the issues that are included in physical wellness are getting enough sleep at night, eating nutritious meals, and get a proper irregular exercise. I started with physical because I think that was the most obvious one to what that looks like, but I'll go through each one. So emotional wellness issues include having good self-esteem and having healthy outlets to deal with stress and anxiety. Intellectual wellness issues include thinking critically, being creative, and expanding your knowledge and as well as your worldviews. Financial wellness issues include using money responsibly, building up savings, and being satisfied with where your current and future finances are. Social wellness issues include having a solid support system, so having friends and family who you can rely on, and having relationships consistent with personal values and beliefs. Spiritual wellness issues include being committed to personal growth and finding purpose and direction in life. Environmental wellness issues include feeling safe and secure and protecting and preserving the world we live in. So this is a good reason why Ajashki focuses on environmentalism and climate change, because we want the whole world to have environmental wellness. So these issues of each dimension that you see here on the screen are not by any means a comprehensive list, but they include some of the more common issues people struggle with. So now I'm going to use a metaphor to kind of explain it all. So if you think of your wellness as a garden, each of the 7 dimensions would be its own garden bed that make up the garden. Each garden bed has its own purpose. The garden beds could be further divided into individual plants into the garden beds. Now, each one of these plants symbolizes each one of these points or issues that you see on the outer edge ring of that graph you see on the screen. So if there's something wrong with the garden bed, you must look at each plant to fix whatever it is that is wrong with it. Working on these plants or taking action on these issues would be similar to doing things like weeding, pruning, staking, or fertilizing the plants. When all the plants in your garden bed are doing well, you have wellness in that dimension. When all your plants in all 7 of your garden beds are doing well and they're looking good and they're blooming and they're healthy, you have complete wellness. So most people on any given day could find a dimension to improve on. Working on each dimension could look different for each person, and the action you take is whatever helps your garden grow. At Ajashki, we have been working one-on-one with the Future Food Warriors around the 7 dimensions of wellness. These mentoring sessions usually last about an hour, and yeah, they've been going pretty well. One thing that I would like to make clear is that what we are doing is not counseling, and we are not diagnosing any illnesses or anything like that. What we are doing with the Future Food Warriors is simply helping them take inventory of their wellness using this chart of the 7 dimensions. So the first step to solving a problem is identifying it. So what we do is we get the future food warriors to choose one issue that they're having trouble with. And then we start working with them around this issue, focusing on one problem at a time. That's important. And we discussed an action with them that can be taken to address these issues. Sometimes the action that can be taken is as simple as going to bed early to achieve better physical wellness, or it could also just be taking a break while working or doing stressful activities to better achieve emotional wellness. So when we were beading at one of the workshops, we were doing a beaded feather workshop with Charlene Tully. She explained to us how we should only be doing beadwork when we are in a good headspace, and we should only be putting positive energy into our beadwork. She explained to us the importance of taking breaks when beading to ensure that we are only putting positive energy into our beadwork and not getting stressed out, or for me, frustrated, as beading can sometimes be. Even this, just by taking a simple break, could be taking inventory of our wellness. And taking breaks would be the action taken to address this issue. So yeah, we will continue to do our coaching sessions with the future food warriors and hope that will help to build their overall wellness. We truly believe that the 7 dimensions of wellness are a great tool for youth empowerment. I myself had started taking inventory of my wellness with some other members of the Ajashki Circle of Support, and I have discussed. I've recognized a few issues, and I have discussed a few actions I could take to address these issues. However, they're not the easiest thing to do for an agriculture entrepreneur or farmer at the beginning of the busy season. But we all need to take time for our wellness, or we will be forced to take time for our wellness. And that can look like being burnt out, or getting sick, or having one of these issues become a huge problem in our life. So my suggestion to everybody, now that I learned the 7 dimensions, because even this 7 dimensions to me is a fairly new topic, or fairly new structure that I've been learning. And my suggestion to everybody is that we can all take some time to take some inventory of our own wellness and work on ourselves in that way. So thank you everybody for listening to my presentation. I hope it was enjoyable and informative. And thank you to the organizers of Earth Speaks and all the people behind the scenes to make it happen. And thank you for having me back on Earth Speaks again. Miigwech.
Well, miigwech, that was great, Kayoki. I like the beading example in the state of mind. It reminds me that my partner once told me that I don't meditate when I thought I was meditating, because I told her that I'm quiet and I'm thinking about problems at work. And I think probably lots of people on the webinar tonight know that doesn't cut it, but I thought it did. So anyway, being in the right frame of mind, something I can relate to, because grinding your head away on some problem at work might not qualify, right? So yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I have some questions here. First one is, I might just a second, maybe out of order. Okay, first one's first. Just wondering how the future food warriors come to be involved. Like, how do the people come to know about Ajashki and come to be involved with it? And just questions about things like their age, background, and how many times a week, for example, are they doing stuff with Ajashki?
Okay, yeah. So So right now, one thing I guess I forgot to mention about our summer and winter programs is in the winter programs, we meet every Thursday. In the summer program, which will start the first week of June, we meet every Tuesday and Thursday. So yeah, how the Future Food Warriors come to Ajashki is, well, we've kind of got them from all over the place. We have one of our eldest Future Food Warrior, you might say, is someone named Ray, and Ray came to us from Youth Services Bureau back when Ajashki first started. He was our first participant. Fast forward a little while, we started getting funding from Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, which only allows us to use that for Indigenous people. So we started only hiring Indigenous Future Food Warriors to come. And how that worked is we started sending out, we made a flyer and started sending out that flyer to Indigenous organizations who might have youth that they are trying to employ. So we work with a youth employment program at a place called Inukatikit, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but so that's how we got two other of our Future Food Warriors, named Javin and Mary Claire. As well, we had one Future Food Warrior who was actually a member of First Jew who was very interested, so we decided to take him on as well. But yeah, all of our Future Food Warriors are in the youth range, because that's how some funders only fund youth. So all of our Future Food Warriors had been between the ages of 16 and 30, but I'm pretty sure most of them have been around like 20, 25 kind of range.
Yeah, right. So a bit varied, interesting how we come in contact with people. So yeah. The next question is, would you have any advice for faith communities, for example, that are seeking partnerships with Indigenous communities around land back and gardening?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? It kind of skipped a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's do you have any advice for faith communities that are seeking partnerships with Indigenous communities around gardening or kind of land back initiatives? That's two different things, but like, anyway.
Yeah, I would say my best advice would be to learn protocols of Indigenous peoples. You'll definitely be received a lot better that way. I've heard some stories from the elders in my community of this one guy who came up to the elders. So a protocol in a lot of Indigenous communities is when you want to ask in a favor of, let's say, an elder or a chief or something, it is protocol to bring an offering of tobacco to then ask. And I've heard some horror stories of people coming up to the elders in my community, and this guy laid out one thing of tobacco and said, like, yeah, you guys can all fight over that there, and I'm going to ask you this. So yeah, learning protocols, and yeah, I know it was kind of a messed up story, but needless to say, the elders in my community did not help this man. But yeah, learning protocols and just being respectful when engaging the communities you'll definitely be better received.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. There is one question here as a hand up, which I think we can accommodate that, and that's fine. So Susan, I hope you can unmute yourself and then just go ahead and ask. Oh, I'm not seeing Susan unmute. Maury, is she able to?
Yes, I just gave her the ability.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Margaret. Keoki, that was a fabulous presentation. I learned a lot, and I think we could all learn a lot from it. Really good. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Verna McGregor for the origin of this. I consulted Verna because because she was a friend, and asked for her advice, and she led this sharing circle. I invited her onto the site and she led the sharing circle. And as Mike mentioned, a few of us mostly from the Environmental Action Group attended the session. Yeah, I just wanted to bring her into the circle, so to speak, and also to thank Sharon, because we all play different roles in beginning of something. And Sharon played a crucial role in getting this all off the ground. I mean, she is so patient and so persistent, and that is really what was needed in this process. So I'd like to thank Sharon deeply for her work on this. Thanks, Keoki. And while I'm thanking people, I want to say we could not have found a better leader in Keoki. Speaking of patience and persistence, I have to say. But to finish the circle in another way, I'd like to just mention that another Unitarian has been involved in this circle recently, which is that Irvin Waller, my husband, actually is the founder of Crime Prevention Ottawa.
Oh.
And in his work in criminology, one of the main things he focuses on is the overpopulation of Indigenous people who are, I think, victims of the he probably wouldn't use the word victim. I hope he doesn't hear me saying this, but of the criminal justice system. And Crime Prevention Ottawa was exactly set up to try to bring to awareness the origins of crime and the importance of the social programs. So I'm so delighted. I'm just floating around at this wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Susan?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for contributing that, Susan, especially the news about Crime Prevention Ottawa. I didn't know that. That's incredible piece of news, and wonderful that it's come full circle, and Ajaski has a program running supported by Crime Prevention Ottawa. I think that's great. So yeah, wonderful news. Yeah, I think one thing, there's the question about how a faith community can support a program of this nature. Generally, was the question in the chat here. And I think recognizing that this will stretch an organization in terms of what it's used to doing typically, it's a little different, right? So get ready for that, and get everybody ready for that. So that's everybody from the congregation to the minister to the office staff. Just things are going to be quite a bit different managing something like this. And I think, Sharon, you had some experience with how normally we have things very structured, and perhaps the Indigenous approach is a bit less structured, and that takes a bit of getting used to, doesn't it? Oh, we've muted you, Sharon. Sorry, but. No. Okay. I see Margaret trying to do something here. Maybe you can unmute now, Sharon. No, you can't. It's still. Okay.
Yeah, she should be able to unmute.
No, try unmuting again, Sharon. One last time.
There we go. Okay.
Yay! Third time.
Okay. So I sometimes think about Ajaski and First U as a clash of cultures. And in fact, what we're both doing is learning from each other. And so that makes a terrific partnership. We all have to look at the world differently, but I think the Indigenous culture is so embracing of people. Indigenous culture is very spiritual. And I think because the Indigenous culture is very spiritual, it's such a good match to be in partnership with First U. And so it's just a beautiful thing.
For sure. Another question here is, how did the future food warriors deal with critters in the outdoor gardens?
So yeah, that's a great question. So we have one of our volunteers or a circle of support at Ajashti is an architect, Patty, and we're probably on here. So yeah, Patty and myself, well, mainly Patty, designed what we call in the Squirrel Protector 3000. So if you walk to the Ajashti garden in the back, there's a huge fence that a fence within the fence. That has these tops that we've taken off right now, but about to put back on. And so yeah, these fence has 4 walls and a roof, and that keeps most of the critters out. So it was pretty good. We were losing almost everything we were growing the first year. Last year, as soon as we built this squirrel protector, we were actually able to start harvesting a lot of the stuff we were growing within it. So it really worked out great. And yeah, we're hoping to actually build a few more of those kind of squirrel protectors around some of the other beds that aren't enclosed in the Squirrel Protector 3000.
I like that you've got a proper, you've got a proper kind of a name for it. I think that's right on. One of my observations with people gardening more in the city, I live out in the country, is that in the city, I think there's more of a problem with critters because nature's a bit out of balance in the city, and you get an overpopulation of them. I don't experience the same problems out here. I mean, like there are a few problems, but not like in town where there's an imbalance kind of, I think, of the animal population, and then a lot of problem with critters. Just anyway, my 2 cents on what I observe with that. So yeah. One other question here. How would the Ajashti program be different if it was working primarily with non-Indigenous future food warriors, or is the program designed universally useful for all Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike?
I think the program is kind of designed universal for non-Indigenous and Indigenous. However, at Ajashti, we do have quite a big emphasis on Indigenous cultures. It's also partially to reconciliation project. So we do have, elders come in when they're available. And then we also, a lot of stuff we do is kind of around kind of Indigenous cultures and Indigenous ways of doing things. Obviously, we occasionally do smudging, which is not exactly not only Indigenous people, but it's definitely something Indigenous people partake in. Yeah, there's a few things. When we had our workshops, we had like primarily Indigenous artists come in to showcase their arts. I would say it's a universal thing, like this kind of project, but what we're doing at Ajashti is kind of specifically has to do with Indigenous culture.
Great. So I see Jan has her hand up, and there are no more written questions. So maybe I'd like to just, this being Earth Week, mention a couple more events, and then maybe we can just end the formal portion and go to open discussion. We'll shut the recording off, and it can be just chit chat. Just put up your hands, and I'll just acknowledge people in order, so don't have a mix up with a bunch of people speaking at the same time, but just be more informal banter now. But first, I'll just share screen on just a couple of events coming up this week. Like I say, Earth Week, so a couple of things happening. So one, I hope you can see this, Rally for Justice in the tar sands in solidarity with Indigenous nations affected by Imperial Oil's toxic tailings leak. This happened in northern Alberta, and it seems to have taken 9 months for Indigenous people in the area to have been notified that they're being poisoned. So I don't know how people can get away with this. I'll leave it at that. It just seems very wrong. I'll be at this demonstration. I encourage people to come right downtown, Spark and Wellington Street, and we believe that it's environmental defense and keepers of the water putting this on. They believe and are telling locals here that we believe this is the day that the president of Imperial Oil is in town to testify at a Commons committee. And the next one, my screen's kind of blocked here. I don't know if I can, bear with me a sec. I'll have to unshare and put something back up. This will just take me a tick. Is actual Earth Day is a trip to Montreal. A coalition of 8 environmental groups are holding a rally in the early afternoon in the area. There we are, finally. Sorry, in the area just on the east side of Mount Royal. And a few of us are going from First U. We'll catch the 10:15 train, rally at the station a little bit beforehand, and join others. There's a group going from Gatineau as well. And I think there'll be quite a few people there. So if you're interested, I think, well, I'll put a Facebook event up for that now. And also I'll throw my email in the chat here if you're interested in contacting me. So yeah. So with that, those are Earth Day events. Get back to our event this evening and just open the floor now to discussion. And yeah, go ahead, Jen. And after that, anybody else, just throw up your hand and